The importance of historical culture and how we understand it. It is important to understand the historical culture of a book of the Bible, a book of the Bible or a passage of the Bible. Because if we look at the passage with our 2022 vision, we wouldn't fully comprehend or understand what is so important about the text. We have to look at it as the time period elaborates. Because in that time period, a lot of the things that they did depended on different materials that was around in that time period, such as during the Old Testament. They sacrificed animals, and the animals took the place of the blood offering until Jesus was slain on the cross. We see that today we don't necessarily understand why it is written like that, and it scares a lot of us away from fully trying to comprehend what the Bible is trying to tell us, or how it is trying to allow us to live a life glorifying of God because of the difference in wording. One key principle is that we must understand the differences between the generations. One thing that differentiates us is those of old in the Old Testament, they didn't have the advancements of rehab that we have. So we might see that, for instance, we might see that we might see the King Pharaoh rode his horse into the sea. And some people might look at that and think to themselves, was Pharaoh a cowboy, or was he just an old man? Because riding horses, we assimilate that with certain people. But we don't realize that during that day and age, that was a form of transportation. And we must understand that the culture in which communication occurs substantially control, if not determine, the meaning. We must understand the meaning. What that means is, going back to the meaning that going back to cultures having different slang, and cultures having different words to mean different things. Like today, we see the word remain or preside. And we see the word preside, we think of just leading. We think of being in the program. But then the word had a different meaning because it was a Greek or a Hebrew word. The book of Ruth was the book that I studied to get a historical cultural analysis. During those days, it was very common for if the oldest son died, the wife of the firstborn was to be passed to the second one in line. Today, that's a tradition that we don't necessarily see. The importance of that tradition was that the brother's bloodline would continue. And we see Naomi only had 2 sons. Both of those sons had wives. Both of those sons had wives. And when those sons died, she had nobody to pass her daughter-in-laws down to. So she told them you'll be better off to go to a different family than to try to survive in mine. But Ruth had enough faith to understand that by standing under Naomi, by sitting under Naomi, by living and taking in the wisdom that Naomi was giving her, that she would make it. And so in those days, you had to gather your own wheat. You had to gather your own material that you were using in order to feed your family. But when Ruth was going out there to tend to the land, it was very common for the man of the house to do the work for the house. But since there was no man, Ruth had to be responsible for the house. And while being responsible for the house, she fell in love with the next of kin and continued on the tradition of the family. So what I'm trying to say in this short vlog is that in order to understand the culture of the Bible and to make the Bible really make sense culturally in today's day and age, we must understand we must try our best to understand the very works or words of the text. Because we can't understand the Bible if we don't try to understand the text.